I'm real proud of you. You
Thank you.
done good.
I always tell my mom now, I'm sorry. I wish I would have had the cognitive capacity then that I do now, because I was, as you probably know, I was like a 2.0 student in high school. And now if I went back, I would be a 4.0 student 100% just from the dedication and the ability to think. But now I'm glad being able to do this now versus, peaking in high school. So I guess it's all kind of worked out.
It works out. I'll tell you a secret. Everyone thinks I was a little nerd in school. I was a 2.0 student. I got put on academic probation my first year of college.
I damn near
And
got kicked out of Paris 2 years in a row.
yeah, I was in the room fighting for you. Actually, if you think about it, you're when you get together with people and talk about high school, it's the ones who said, I never had a problem. Everything went great in high school. They're the ones who are just so uninteresting.
I eternise your name. Walk ahead.
All
Okay.
righty. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a long time since we talked. It's been what, since my sophomore year? So what was that, 2015?
Gosh. Oh my gosh. You make me feel old, but yeah.
Well, you are old.
Yeah. Don't tell
No,
my wife. She thinks I'm 25. She thinks she's
exactly. You're wise. No, man, I just want to start off by saying everyone has that teacher that they remember. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even remember what class I was in of yours, but I remember you. I remember how much fun we used to have, and I remember how just because no matter what opinions we or may not have agreed or disagreed on, you above every other teacher I've ever had embraced that dialogue and that discord of disagreements and working out and hashing out ideas. So even though I may not share a lot of the same views that I did back then, but that's important to adolescence and growing up, to being able to explore those ideas and bounce those ideas off of adults and not feel like an idiot. So I appreciate that.
appreciate it. I'll tell you, if people ask me what if I had a secret, my secret was I knew right from the start I didn't know what the F I was talking about. So it wasn't like I could be an authority on anything. I let the kids talk.
It's
So
it's just a self awareness that you have. I mean, you don't take yourself too serious. Am I right?
yeah, yeah, I've learned that most times when I take myself too serious, I get burned, and I later look back and go, I should have just taken it as it was and lightened up. So, I'll be honest. I learned more from y'all, from kids asking questions, than y'all learned from me, because every day I'd go home and say, God, that was a good point. I won't admit, but that was a good point that kid made. He showed me up, and I'll go home and look it up. So
You can't give us too much power right off the bat.
no, no, can't let you think you know it all too soon.
Where do you
I'm
think
still
that
trying to.
where do you think that self awareness comes from?
Oh shoot. Well, this is kind of weird, but um, I'm a youngest child, and I find that when I'm fourth kid, and I bond a lot with a lot of youngest kids. I don't know why, but as I grow up and I meet people, and at some point I'm talking to them, and in the middle I'll say, "Were you a youngest kid?" And they'll go, "Yeah." How'd you know? And I'll say, "You just got that attitude." And when you're a youngest kid growing up, everybody's telling you what to do, and everybody's telling you what to think, and you can't tell everybody shut up, so you just sit and nod and
Yep.
you just take it all in, and then later you decide which ones you want to follow and which ones you don't.
I think that's a very important trait because, especially now with everybody having a platform on social media, everybody having an opinion that they can put out into the world, that everybody feels like they have to let their opinion on every single thing be known. And I think too few people have the ability or just the consciousness and the awareness to actually sit back and let me listen to this person. Let me listen to this person. I might be able to take from both of them and then formulate my own opinion. And too many people just are in echo chambers and they just recite what they hear from one side over and over again and don't get the nuance.
You learn well, my friend. That is exactly because, I now write books, and I write books about media and how to teach kids about media. And the main thing is, make up your own mind, but be aware of what are the nudges and who are the people and what are the opinions nudging you, and then you pick it out. I'll tell you honestly, when I went to write these books, um, I have a particular political persuasion. I make no bones about it. I'm on the left, but I intentionally sought out a writing partner who was on the right, on
Hmm.
the other side. And he's another teacher, and he and I, we will go at it and disagree. And then we come together and we realize we both want the same thing. We want
Yeah.
people to listen to both sides, every side, inside, outside, and decide for themselves.
And so I'm not huge into politics.
Yeah.
I kind of thought I wanted to be when I was in high school because I wanted to be the super conservative, super right wing. But as I've gotten older, I mean, I'm sure you can attest to it. I want to resonate more with common sense and what I think is right, and being able to now have these conversations is, I think a lot of people don't realize you can, if you listen to the argument of the other side, a lot of the times you agree on 80, 90% of even that one topic. You're just going about it in a different way.
Absolutely. I think everybody in the end wants the same goal. When you just sit down and talk and put all the politics aside, everybody wants, they want love, they want security, they want a good environment for the kids.
Hmm.
And like I said, my writing partner and I, if it came down to strict politics, we'd probably disagree on 90%. But when it comes to writing about media and messaging, we uh we agree on just about everything. Hold on. My wife here is giving me a subtle message here. So let me see what she's saying. Okay. So my wife wants me to work in because she is my co-writer for the last book.
Okay.
And we have a new angle on it. So she wants me to work in more cheap plugs for the book.
Hey, absolutely. It's not going to do any good right now, but hopefully down the line it will. It's
Yeah.
is it My Money Journey?
No, oh, that's the another one we did about they asked 30 people to talk about on My Money Journey how you got to learn about money and investing and what was your path to it. And my wife and I were two of the 30 people asked because we were the only husband and wife who each got our own essay or chapter because we're completely opposite. My wife is very slow and steady. She's very cautious. She will not make a decision until she researches it for hours. I'm more a shoot from the hip, and I made some bad decisions and then had to pick myself up.
Yeah.
But no, the book, let me just go ahead and say the book we're writing now is again, it's about teaching kids with social media and all the things that influence kids today. And we call them sways. Um, let's put it this way. If I asked you, Austin, right now, name a candy bar off the top of your head, what would you say?
Probably Snickers.
Snickers. Okay. So if we could go into Austin's brain, then and get through the horror show, whatever all the stuff is in
All
there.
the CTE.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So what we'd see is that it's not just the taste of Snickers. It may be that you had a uncle who also ate Snickers. It may be the color of the wrapper, or maybe they sponsored, a meet you went to. All those little things are called sways, and they build up over a lifetime, just affecting your decision. So that when you say, "I want this now," it may be you and every other you going back 25, 30 years that's making that decision. So that's what we're writing about.
Do you think it has anything to do with like the Pavlov experiment, like that type of thing, where the more
Yeah.
positive affirmations, more positive experiences you have, that sways you more in one direction versus the other,
Oh, absolutely.
and our
You
tendencies and
know,
biases?
oh yeah, that's why when you go and you wonder, well, why is Snickers sponsoring, this MMA fight? And you're thinking, they have not, but if it's there and you enjoy the fight, the two things are going to merge in your mind. so that when you see Snickers, you may not even remember it. You'll say, I got a positive feeling about this.
Hmm.
And that's why they sponsor, and that's why, and again, that's life. That's our free market economy. What our thing is for people to be aware of what are the sways and on them and in their life.
And how to, like you said, how to pick up on them and how to not let them control you. Because I know media for sure has always had a, influence on you, but before there were fewer channels, so you weren't getting as many ads about Snickers, or you weren't getting as many different things conflicting and going on in your brain. I think that's part of the reason that so many people are confused now, and don't know how to find their self identities. They have 1,000 different things a day coming at them and trying to influence them one way or the other. But before, you had 4 TV channels, and then you had
Right.
4 people that you could make decisions off of, and then you had the newspaper, and you might have had a magazine here and there, and a couple buddies you chopped it up with, and a crazy
Yeah.
uncle. So you had
Yeah.
10 different things that were influencing you versus you have literally 1,000 different Twitter accounts that you might be seeing coming through Facebook, politics, the list goes on. So it's I think it's very important that you're doing what you're doing. Is it the high schoolers media literacy, middle school and then so on?
Yeah, that was the first book series we did.
Okay.
Um, the area is called behavioral economics. It's the non-rational reasons we spend money. We spend money, spend a little bit more because we think we'll look cool in a designer shirt. And my bit is I'll never tell someone don't spend that extra money. It's just be aware of why you're doing it and then make a conscious decision. I mean, I certainly buy stuff just because I think I look cool in it or other people are doing
Hmm.
it that I admire. But I want to make it a conscious decision when I do as much as possible.
I mean, that's why all these brands they go to these online influencers for
Yeah,
advertisement. Now, it used to be movie stars, it used to be TV stars, musicians. It still is now, but there's so many of these influencers have more followers than or just as many followers as these like actual celebrity A-list celebrities. And so
yeah,
they're using that as their marketing and to influence the younger generation through TikTok, through Instagram, and all these
absolutely.
imagery.
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing is we're mainly focusing on influencers and online because that's where kids are getting their sways and their information. So we did a lot of surveying. I think I creeped out a lot of middle schoolers because I'd stop them at random and say, who's your favorite influencer? And they kind of run away. And I was actually more worried about the ones who stopped and talked to me,
Yeah.
I was like, sure, I'll tell you. And let me show you.
Just
But
you may have talked to me, but don't get into the next van you see.
yeah, the creepy guy next to him, don't talk to him.
The one with candy, yeah. But you did point something out about it being aware of these things and then being conscious, even though you're aware of it, you can still make your decision from there as long as you're not ignorant to the fact. For me, it's always been food. For me, like my comfort is even if I had $5 to my name and I could go get something from the gas station for $4.50, and
Yeah,
but that was my comfort for the like. Some people can go and not eat. My comfort is food, fast
yeah,
food. Just anything. If I'm stressed out, if I have a lot going on, I'll go to a space where I don't even think about it. I'll just pull in and I'll pull in somewhere and get some food, and that's
yeah.
why I've always been heavier my whole life. But as I've started addressing that and bringing other practices in my life, like getting into martial arts and kickboxing, I've been able to cut some of those things out because I'm not so reliant on that type of comfort. I'm actually going and doing physical and hard things, like as you know, Taekwondo, martial
Yeah.
arts are I think fantastic for men and people in general, but especially for men, getting that aggression out and getting that release. So being aware of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can tell you. I mean, from all my stories in class, usually when I didn't have enough material to cover the class, I start telling you about my family and stuff. And but my sons and even my wife and I all got into Taekwondo, and it was a great outlet. Especially, I'll tell you, I have two sons. They're 28 and 27. And the funny thing is neither of them was really good or interested in ball sports like soccer,
Hmm.
football. They just weren't into that. And they needed something. And we found it with martial arts as a way where they could channel their energy. And they found a lot of self fulfillment, self confidence. And you're right. At least some of my sons, it kept them out of trouble.
Yeah.
Just and translating that discipline of stopping and thinking, because people get the wrong idea that martial arts is just throwing a punch and hitting. It's much more about the mind, and thinking and coming up with a strategy, and that has helped them in every facet of their life.
I mean, Joe Rogan describes it as high level problem solving with extreme consequences.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean,
Like, yeah.
I'll tell you what. My older son Ben, now he's kind of like me. He's on the short side. So when we got him in to martial arts, I just wanted him to get a little bit of self confidence and everything. And I just love telling this because the first time he had to go spar, I was nervous. I'm saying it's fine, you'll do fine. Meanwhile, I'm on the side going, "Please God, just let him live. Just keep his nose on the right side of his face." And Ben is staring at the guy, and he just starts staring, and the guy's throwing punches. And then all of a sudden, Ben just does this quick little flurry, and the guy goes down. And I'm like proud and everything, but I am so shocked. And afterwards, I said, Ben, I don't want to sound like a bad dad, but where the heck did you get that from? And he said, well, Dad, I just pretended I was in a video game. And I know in video games, they always have a tell that the bad guy, the boss monster. So I just watched and waited for that tell, figured it out, and then countered. And that was born a fighter. And from there, he became my one who went to all the tournaments. He was never pretty. Let me add this: he was never a pretty fighter, but he everything he did was mental and a counter strike, and that's actually in business today. He still uses that strategy of he watches other people, figures out what their method is, and then decides how to respond.
I think that's a very again comes back to self awareness. But when you're aware of your own limitations, you're aware of your own tendencies, you can pick it up in other people easier. For me, I mean, I actually just got off an almost 2 hour interview right before this with the girl that I'm doing. I have another podcast that I started a couple weeks ago called Loosely Dating. So this was Loosely Business. I have Loosely Dating, and it's about dating in the modern age and the struggles of it. And but I want to do it in a more in a more tasteful way than you see nowadays with all the arguing and the cussing and the slut shaming back and forth. I actually want to have conversations with both sides and see the positives and negatives of dating them, and so that way people can understand each other back and forth. But being aware of these things, it helps you grow, and it helps you see other people for who they are and what they're trying to do. And I use that in sales as well. And I think sales is what's taught me this. I've always been kind of self-aware. Not always, because in high school it was like a blur, but I think that's just being an adolescent, teen and not being mature yet. But as I've become an adult, sales, I think, has taught me that, and being aware and being able to read body language, being able to read those cues, those tells, like your son was saying. And now I use that as I'm only a year into kickboxing, but I think I'm much better than most people already in a year in. And that's something that I take, and like your son said, most people have a tell in sales and in business. Most people have a tell when you're negotiating, and you can pick up on these things. So he's 100% right.
These skills translate so well. I'll tell you the other thing. You hit it on the head because one of the stories I tell when I do speeches and things and about media literacy, and before you can learn, I always tell the story that in ancient Greece, there was the temple at Delphi, where everyone used to go, and it was the temple of Apollo, where supposedly they would tell you what your future was and read the signs. But as you walked up to the temple, there were all of these little sayings on the pillars that you were supposed to stop and think about before you went and asked your question, like, who should I marry? Will I be successful? What's the right thing to do? And the most famous of the warnings or advice was know thyself. So before you go and ask about others or your future, you got to first know where you are and where you're at. And I think that's always the first step. If you know yourself, know your own tells, and then you can start to see them in others.
I think it's almost like, I mean, you being, do you still teach or no?
No, yeah,
Okay.
I'm in the federal witness protection program, and at least that's what I tell people. No, I'm retired.
Okay. Um, but yeah, so as a teacher, I mean, as in going back to a student's mentality, you can have the students that go and just get the answers from somebody else to pass the test. Or you can have somebody who actually studies and understands the material, and just because they don't, or someone who memorizes the test, which is something I actually was pretty decent at, like for vocabulary. Like I'd go memorize 30 vocabulary words 20 minutes before the test and the definitions, and I'd just piece things together, and I'd get a 90, 95 on it most of the time. Well, that doesn't help long term. So I didn't actually do the intrinsic work to go and study the material, actually know the definition and be able to recall it later on. I just knew it for that short period of time. So by going, in this story that you're relaying to, going and asking somebody for the answer, the fortune teller, you may get the answer, but you don't know how they got to that answer. You don't know how you arrived to it. You're not aware of your own journey. So you have to understand where you came from to understand where you are and where you're going. And like I said, that comes back to self-awareness.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, now I'll blame this on you car guys because cars are too good today. But I tried to explain to my sons that my first car was a 1976 Gran Torino, and 400 cubic inches. Used to cruise up and down Forest Lane in the 70s. But when you got your first car, the first thing you did, this was back in the 70s, was as you were driving, you took your hands off the wheel. And you did that because you wanted to find which way did the car naturally go. You wanted to know because every car there with the alignment in those days had a natural way to go right or left or some weird jinky way. And you needed to know that so that you could counter steer.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of life to me is about knowing which way you naturally go and being aware so you can counter steer that way. So that I can keep in my lane. And I think that's a big part of getting ahead in life is knowing yourself, knowing which way you go so you can kind of counter steer or at least check. Am I going? Because I know I have tendencies. I had tendencies when I dated, in business. And so I try to keep aware of that. And
Well,
that's what
yeah, and
yeah.
and as like even in dating too, is if you understand your tendencies, your weaknesses, your insecurities, you can start to pick that up in other people because they
Oh,
may display some of the same. This is just the human psychology aspect. They display some of the same emotions, some of the same tells that you do.
absolutely. It's funny that you're doing about dating because in our research about sways, more and more people meeting online. By the way, I'll let you in on a little secret. My wife and I, we're both on a second marriage here, going to be 20 years this July.
Congrats,
Uh,
that's not easy.
no, thank you. But we met. We were one of the first to meet with online dating. It was a brand new thing, and it was Match.com 20 years ago, 22 years ago when we met.
Did she just
And
correct you?
yeah, yeah, I'm looking over.
I saw the over the shoulder.
I was like, okay, so yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, it was a brand new thing. And it's a whole new way to look at sways and tells and knowing about yourself. I learned more about myself looking at profiles online um, than in a lot of other ways dating.
That now there's I think it's two so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe back then profiles were actually important. Like you had
Oh,
a bunch of stuff detailed out, right?
Oh yeah, you had a whole list of questions that you had to do, and to be honest, y- y- no one really knew what they were doing. But like I'll tell you, one thing was one woman sent me. She was interested in me, and she was a photographer, and I was reading her profile, and she spelled photographer three different ways, and I just couldn't get over it as a teacher. And I wanted to say, look, you're great and everything, but proofread. I got to hold true to my craft.
And I'm kind of the same way about that because if someone is now one or two misspelled words or grammatical errors is one
Yeah.
thing, but when it's always happening, that's I think that again is a lack of self awareness and not that you have to worry about what other people think all the time because it's not the end of the world, but it's just some people just go through life without thinking at all. And you said you fire from the hip, but you're still very calculated. It's like you're firing and aiming, but you're not
Mhm.
just firing. Some people close their eyes and fire, you know?
Yeah. I'll tell you a little, one of my many other things that I tried because I really like to just try a lot of things and see what the heck. My family motto is dignity is overrated. So I used to do a little bit of improv and stand up comedy. I've done that a couple of times.
I can see
And
that.
one of the things I learned from improv is you know how it always looks like it's made up on the spot. Well, the thing is, they go in there, and I learned to do this with a toolkit. Like you already have some jokes and scenarios already in mind, and then when that somebody gives you the prompt, you see if you can fit it in. So it looks spontaneous, looks like you're shooting from the hip, but you kind of had that, for lack of a better word, phrase, you have the gun loaded already.
Yeah, it's like a stand-up comedian. I've never done stand-up, but it's for me. It's not that hard to see. You know, you look at a bunch of comedians. Do you watch a bunch of comedians now?
Yeah, yeah,
So do you know who Andrew Scholes is?
yeah, yeah,
Andrew, he's one of the best crowd work comedians there is,
yeah.
and it's. I'm sure a lot of it is the top off the top of his head, but like you said, I guarantee you, he's the jokes he's telling. He's ran through scenarios, five, six, seven scenarios, to where
Mm-hmm.
if they respond with this way, then I can take it this way, and if they respond here, then I branch off and go here. And even in a stand up comedy set, that when they're relying on the response of the crowd, they know they're going to take it A, B, or C based on this, and then from C, then you have another one. You're going to F, E, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, and if you want to bring it full circle, the same thing in Taekwondo or kickboxing. You sort of have some presets. You got to leave room for flexibility, be
Yeah,
flexible, but you got some presets of if I throw a certain move, they're probably going to do one or two things, and I got to be ready to go with whichever way. And I had the same thing with dating. I mean, on my profile, you asked about profiles were really long back then. I tell jokes. I like to tell jokes. So I put in jokes in my profile, but I thought about which jokes. I didn't just throw anything in. And also, I tell you what I did was I had a group of female friends, and I had them preview my jokes, and then they said, "No, don't put this one in. Go ahead, put that one in." And I tested some material before I threw it out there.
I think that's important too because I've kind of talked about it on the dating podcast. Is I think men now are so reliant on the technology to try to go after the woman that
Yeah.
they don't have enough interactions with women to understand the
Hmm.
nuances of a personal relationship with a woman. So they may understand some pickup lines. They may understand how to text because there's plenty of places that they can go buy courses and learn and learn some valuable things as far as maybe pickup game, but it only takes you so far. And then once you get in, and that's one complaint I've heard from women doing this so far is that yeah, the guy may know what to say off the get go to sound great and be super confident and act like he knows what he wants, and then eventually it just falls apart and they can't sustain it anymore.
That's absolutely right. And you got to do, I know it sounds weird, but you got to do your prep work or as a teacher, your homework. Um, you know, my wife here, I looked at her profile And she said she was into a couple of things. Well, I went and looked them up and, learned a little bit about them. And then made sure to ask her about them because, in the end, it sounds like I'm posing, but I really want to get to know her and have her relate, but I got to meet her part way and give her that opening.
It also comes from your intentions, and then
Yeah.
your intentions are going to be based off of what you're comfortable with and what you want in your life. So, for instance, me, I've gone through my stages where I've been chasing women. I certainly have. I mean, I'm 25 years old now. I mean, I've been the younger guy. I've chased women instead of chasing what I want to achieve, and
Right.
I've not used. Yeah, I'm gonna skip past that. So I've taken the focus off of what I should have been focused on. So and what most men don't realize is they act like it's two separate things to go after what you want and to attract the women that you want, but they're not.
Yeah.
If your wife had met you and you were out doing things that you enjoyed, if you were out doing taekwondo, or I don't know if you were doing taekwondo then, but you were out and you were, with your friends and you were out making
Right.
new friends and being social and being funny, cracking jokes, doing things that you enjoyed, she's going to see that and be attracted to you because you're not focused solely on her. Too many
Oh,
guys now try to take so much focus off of what they're doing and try to put it on women, and then but that yeah, you may be able to persuade them to go on a couple dates, but that's not sustainable long term because then you put all this effort into women, and then you don't know who you are, and then
yeah.
they could have just as easily gone and done things, built their business, wrote books, doing things that they enjoy doing, and then the women will come later and be attracted to that and drawn to that.
You are exactly right. I will tell you this. Um, I had two big, I guess you'd say, time periods of dating. First was in my 20s. And yeah, I was out chasing, doing that. And I didn't want to figure out who I was because I thought, well, maybe I'll be different in 5 years. I was so out. It was the game, it was the hunt, every
Hmm.
bad metaphor you can. It was exhausting looking back. Then I got married, marriage fell apart. My second time dating was in my 30s. And I got to tell you, that was better because by that point, I kind of knew who I was. In my 20s, honestly, if a woman had said to me, I really like guys who do MMA, I would have gone out and gotten my butt kicked because I'm not an MMA. I would have gone out and got smeared all over the mat just so they'd maybe like me. In my 30s, I was like, hey, this is what I do. This is what I don't do. If it's a good fit, cool. If not, nice to meet you. Have a good life. And the quality was so much better. It was chill. I didn't have to worry about it. I'll tell you this. One of my secret passions is I am a crazy cat guy. Okay. I have a house full of cats. I hated cats growing up, always was a dog person. Now I'm a cat person. Um, when I met my wife, I said, you know what? I got two cats and it's a package deal. I'm sorry. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And she was like, that's cool. She's into it. And it worked out. But the point is, when you know who you are, it gives you a firm stance. And I don't care if it's dating or MMA or Taekwondo, the first thing they teach you is have a firm stance.
Hmm.
You
And it's
cannot do, yeah.
business and dating, relationships, and people in general are going to respect you more when you're coming from a place of genuine happiness and joy because you know who you are and you know what you're working for. Um,
Oh,
I talk about dating a lot, so I'm going to kind of shift focus off of
okay.
that
Okay.
because you're somebody that I want to talk about a bunch of things with. You travel quite a bit. That's something that I want to do.
Yeah.
But talk about the importance of travel. We're going to talk broad stroke down. We can break into the details later, but just what has
Okay.
traveling meant to you?
Well, I'll tell you this. First of all, I grew up in Dallas and I thought, I'm going to leave this town. I am not going to live here. And I'm now in my 60s and I'm still living not only in Dallas, I'm still living off Hillcrest Road, which is the street I grew up off of. So you would think I'm not a traveler, but I always love traveling because I want to get different perspectives. To me, staying in one place is just looking at a cube from one side of a cube. It's got six sides, and if you're just looking from one side, you don't know what's around it. And I want to see what's on all the sides. And when I met my wife, and let me say here, she's originally from Thailand. She came over to America for grad school and stayed. So she already loved to travel, and we decided we want to get out. We took our boys traveling as much as possible so they could see different things. They could decide what they liked, what they didn't like about life. Every time we traveled somewhere, and it didn't matter if it was to Thailand or to up near you. We used to love Turner Falls, by the way.
Turner Falls is nice.
Yeah, we used to go up there and
Little
and
Niagara.
do. Oh yeah, we used to do creek hiking there. Just go away for the weekend, get some old tennis shoes, and walk around there, or go backpacking on this road in Germany where we stayed in a castle and walked around. Um, we just want to see the world, and I guess my wife and I we wrote about this for a while. We call this now our third life. Your first life, you wonder about the world, everything's special about the world, but you're stuck as a kid. Your second life, you know a little bit more, but you've got a job, maybe a wife, kids. Your third life is the time the kids are gone, you're free. Now is our time to wander and wonder. And so we travel all the time. Gosh, we just got back from a month in Portugal.
So you went to
So,
Portugal. That's where it was.
yeah, we both are avid hikers, and there's this famous old pilgrimage road it's actually in Spain called El Camino de Santiago, and we walked it from Spain across to Santiago, and this time we started in Portugal and walked north to cross over into Spain.
You get such a different perspective traveling that you would never get. And I've only been out of the country twice. It's been to Mexico both times, and it wasn't for sightseeing. It was a party. I'm not gonna lie. Got some stories that I don't care to share. Sorry, mom. But like even just traveling in the U.S., you get that you understand a few things. One, that cultures are very different. You get both sides of the story. You get multiple sides of the cube, like you said. But also, people are the same everywhere you go. They're different, but they're the same. And that you get an appreciation for that. And I think that would, if people would travel and people would be around different cultures, different, and just people that have a different way of living, they would understand a lot of biases, a lot of prejudices would start to go away over time just by having interactions with people, that are different than themselves and trying to learn different languages, trying different foods, trying different, routines.
So I'll tell you, one of the things we do, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you're right, just traveling in the US, one of our favorite things when the kids were young was just, we'd go up to Arkansas. Nothing against Texas and Oklahoma. Arkansas state parks are fantastic. And we used to go up there, just walk around because it was so different from Dallas. But the main thing is we always made sure we didn't eat in like I guess a touristy place. We looked for a local diner. And you are right. We met people um, just traveling in Portugal this last month. We don't speak Portuguese, but there are people we met who we would wave to, communicate. And when you're hiking a trail, like one place we stayed, there was people from Germany, a guy from the Czech Republic, and we're all kind of figuring out ways to communicate and figuring out shared experience. Um, can I tell you one quick story I had
Yeah.
this one just really blew me away. One time I decided, this before I met my wife, I got an opportunity to go to China. Um, I was technically going as a education ambassador. It was a group of teachers, American teachers were going to People's Republic of China, mainland China, and we were going to watch their educational system and kind of talk. Well, I got tired of seeing everything that the Communist Party wanted me to see. So one day I called in sick. I told them, I'm sick, I'm just staying in my room. And the bus took off. Well, I put on my backpack and I walked out the street. I was in Beijing and I just started walking around the streets. And people later said I was a fool, and I probably was, but
Let's say
I
that
just,
doesn't sound safe.
yeah, no, but I just wanted to see what was up. So I'm walking around the streets and I turn a corner and there is a market and there's this woman there and she's selling little trinkets and stuff. So I want to buy something just to bring back. So she doesn't speak English. I don't speak Chinese. And we're kind of like nodding. And all of a sudden she points at my backpack and kind of raises her eyebrows. And I look and she's pointing to it's a picture of one of my sons. He gave it to me so that I wouldn't forget what he looked like while I was in China. He gave it to So she pointed at it like that and then pointed at me like, is he yours? And I said, yes, he's mine. And she immediately pulled out a picture of a little boy, a photo, and pointed and went, mine. And I pointed at mine and I went, him, 5. And she got real, and she pointed at hers and said 5. And at that moment, there is no the miles difference, the language, everything, philosophy, education, it all went away. We were two parents of 5-year-old boys. And you could just physically feel that bond.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about travel.
Man, that's a people don't understand that. That's a powerful. I mean, that's a powerful story that you just shared, and most people don't get that perspective. And I think again, that's why we have these views of the world, and it's not helped by the current media situation. The media has always been biased one way or the other, never really showed the whole picture. But now you can really tune into one echo chamber, even though the information's out there, it's kind of a crazy time because before not all the information was available. Now most of the information is available, but most people choose to ignore it because they stay on one side, and you're told that anything that comes from another perspective is completely wrong. And then you have people that just have these opposing ideologies and never understand it and never can understand, one perspective or the other.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I come back to everybody wants a better, safer world for their kids, for their loved ones. And, you are right. Media, the studies show, and I'll circle around cheap, gratuitous reference to our book, that media sells more when they make people uncomfortable and when they make you scared and afraid. And so they are going to do everything they can. And, um, social media got busted because their algorithms intentionally are designed to agitate, irritate. And you're right. I get people on both sides, every side. I get tired of saying both sides
Yeah,
because
both.
there's so
Yeah,
many
every side.
yeah, that say, well, I don't trust the media. That's why I only listen to, and then they'll say some media. It's like,
Exactly.
just talk to each other.
I wanted you kind of started looping into it. I wanted to touch back, and so you can plug your book as much as you want. You can talk about it as much as you want because I know that you have a certain amount of expertise. I don't like the black and white of the word expertise, but you've been studying this for a long time, and that's what you do. So you have expertise in that field. How have you seen the media change? You can talk about whatever aspect of it you want, whatever bullet point you want to hit on. What do you think is the most important, and how the media has changed in the past 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, let me start with this. Media, when I was growing up, as you said, there were 3, 4 networks. And the big thing was that not only was it filtered, and you have to understand a lot of my stuff is about kids in media. Parents were there as gatekeepers. The change really happened. Parents could say, no, you're not going to watch this, or let's talk about what they're really saying. I remember, I used to always ask in my media class, what's the first thing you remember that was really big news? Um, for me, it was the assassination of Martin Luther King. I'm that old. Um, and so I remember him and Bobby Kennedy in 1968 being killed. And I was a little kid, but my parents talked me through it. Fast forward, that changed in the 1990s with cable TV. Because what happened was you suddenly had all these channels coming out that were directly geared to kids. Now, that's not good or bad, that's just more entertainment. But what happened was there was a guy, he was actually out of Texas A&M, and he said if we're directly messaging to kids, we can directly sell to them and influence kids. And he wrote a book called Kids as Customers. He just was open, and he said kids are recipients of messaging three ways. They are influenced themselves. You can make a kid say, you're a loser unless you buy this toy. They influence their parents. They'll tell their parents, nobody loves them unless we go to Disney World. And you're also influencing them for later when they're older. And in the 1990s, that whole thing exploded. Quick thing, again, my son who's 28, he loved watching Disney Channel around the year 2000. And they had a show on called Disney Movie Surfers. And I'll know some of your audience that around 30 might remember it. It was a show where you had kids sit around and review Disney made movies on Disney Channel. And they always loved the movies, of course.
Yeah.
Because they are Disney employees. Well, one time they were reviewing a movie, and the review said it was a terrible movie, but they all loved the movie. And they were taking it. And my son watched it, and I guess my son was about 6, and he turned and said, Dad, we got to go watch this movie. We got to go see it. And I said, what makes you think they're telling you the truth? And he looked, and all of a sudden he started crying. He says, they're lying? Why would they lie? But nobody lies. They're being honest. And I realized it's not a fair fight. You've got corporations and media influencing kids in a game that the kids don't even know they're playing. Now, if that happened, I know there's a long way. Then comes along the internet and smartphones. And again, they're just tools. They're not good, they're not bad. It's how they're used. But they have opened up the floodgates for kids to be influenced before they even understand what's going on. You'll have, for good or, I'm even going to say for good or bad and try to hedge it. You'll have a 10-year-old girl who will see an influencer with a tattoo that says sexy. So she'll go out and get a fake tattoo that says sexy and wear it to school. That girl does not even understand the implications of what she is saying, And again, I'm not here to be a prude or to say do or don't, but does that kid really understand what they're saying about themselves and their body and their value when they're told this will make you popular?
Absolutely. And I was gonna actually transition into the social media part of it. Is what was the craze like 4 or 5 years ago? Whenever all the young girls and all the women saw Kylie Jenner's lips, and then one girl the fake lips, and then some of them figured out that you can use a shot glass to suction your lips, and the blood would rush. And then a lot of people were having like permanent deformities because they didn't do it correctly or they left it on too long, and then they had permanent damage done to their face because they didn't understand the full consequences of what that could do, just because they didn't understand that Kylie Jenner's lips are completely fake, and they had spent millions of dollars on their image, on their Photoshop, on their doctors to do all of this, and because they think that's the image, that's what is popular, without any
Exactly.
regard to what the consequences might be.
That's exactly it. And they're not getting, you've got a bad message, not a bad message, an incomplete message because
That
they
yeah,
don't show all of the facets of it. And the message is being sent to, my emphasis is on kids before they even have, for example, abstract problem solving to think out what could be the long term consequences. People say to me, are kids worse today? No, kids are still the same. Kids are kids. Um, but they are shown more things that they think, well, let me try that, and it leads to bad consequences. Um, my bent is there's three ways to kind of address this problem. Um, you can try to have top down, but the government is doing whack a mole because everybody, I mean, look at it this way, they're trying to go after TikTok, and ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, has already started a second backup social media in case TikTok goes under. So they can just, it's whack a mole. Parents, we try to get them involved, but they're frustrated and don't know what's happening under the radar. So, one of the things we're trying to do is how do you teach kids how to be better consumers? We teach kids about what is good food to consume. Don't buy the cereal that says part of a balanced breakfast when it's 40% sugar. You know,
yeah.
um, well, can we teach the kids the same thing about consuming information that's 40% crap? You know,
I think part of that, the issue, or the direct perpendicular issue to that is that people don't cultivate the problem solving skills. That's what I was trying to say. Is when you said when you there's a incomplete picture given to kids. As an adult, you may be able to realize you can look at a puzzle and say, "I've got 35 pieces, a 35 piece puzzle. I'm missing 7 of them, so I'm
yeah,
not getting the whole picture here." As a kid, the kid might keep trying to put the puzzle together and not actually go and count the pieces really quickly to realize I'm missing 7 out of 35 pieces. I'm not going to be able to complete it. I'm not going to know
that,
what the full image looks like. And you only get that through trial and error of going through life and going through life kind of unshielded. And that's why I think too many people are shielded behind this nowadays and aren't
that,
experiencing real ups and downs. They just experience it virtually through their phone and get that initial dopamine hit, and they don't go through it and then learn or have these experiences that can go forward in the future and help them understand that I've only got 28 out of 35 puzzle pieces. Maybe I should try to find those other puzzle pieces first before I go jump to a conclusion. And then as a
I,
kid, that's what, sorry to cut you off, as a kid, they don't have that problem solving and that critical thinking. So that puts them and other people in more dire situations than they should be in. Because that's why kids can't be just kids anymore.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you hit the nail on the head. And it relates to so many ways because when they do it through the phone, what's happening is like you're seeing many more of, it's hard to date, it's hard to make friends, it's hard to interact. So again, remember I said about taking your hands off the wheel. A kid is going to go, I could go to this, say, party and talk to people, but I'm uncomfortable. So I'm going to take my hands off the wheel and end up staying in my room on my phone and just interact here because it's safe. Well, not only are they not, they may be avoiding the bad, but they're also avoiding learning how to work through the bad.
Absolutely.
And they're not learning, we used to talk about grit. How do you get knocked down and then get back up and say, okay, This wasn't my day, but it doesn't mean I'm going to quit. What do I do next time? Um, and then again, that's an important skill. And the message there is you can have it all. You're a winner. Um, we're seeing something now rising up. It's actually been around, but it's getting more prevalent. It's called the parasocial relationship. And what it is, you know, you have friends and, you know, we all have friends, and you learn with friends to have a give and take. And with a friend, you may say something wrong, and your friend's going to go, dude, that's wrong. That's out of line. And you learn. And that's how we learn and grow and help each other.
Checks
But
and
that's
balances.
tough. Yeah. And it's tough to do. Well, what happens is you get the kid who doesn't want to do that because that's tough. So what they do is they attach themselves to someone online like an influencer. The influencer sounds like a friend, sounds like they understand the kid. The kid feels an affinity for the influencer and says, you know what? Instead of risking it with kids my age, I'm going to watch this influencer. And they develop, we call it a parasocial relationship. It's a one way friendship. The kid feels like this influencer or celebrity is their friend, but is not. You know, I mean, we can go back and call it a stan in its worst form. That the kid becomes obsessed and follows and never develops the social skills to learn how to function with other human beings.
And by Stan, you're referring to the Eminem song Stan, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I
Because
got you.
yeah, sorry, I was sorry. I went old school for a moment
No,
there.
that's not too old school. But no,
Okay.
I think you're
But
absolutely
what's happening is because the parasocial relationship, if it keeps going, it morphs into an obsession, which we're finding more stands. You know, and you can look at all of these fans who literally all they are devoted to is one influencer, and you see them in waves, whether you call them Swifties or whatever, who just go in waves, and that's all they're about, and they are attacking people who attack their influencer. And I try not to judge, but it's not healthy.
no, it's not. Before before at least you had tabloids and reporters and what's the who are the people who
Paparazzi.
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 At least you had paparazzi. Yeah, they might have caught Britney Spears when she had her head shaved, or they may have caught somebody, doing something they weren't supposed to. But at least then, like you had a more nuanced sense of, okay, this is a human as well. Now you
Right.
get so much. Okay, maybe my point's a little moot, but because you have the cancel culture, but like you lose that sense of that sense of human, like the human nature, and people are human because you get so much of skewing in one direction from an influencer. And like for YouTube, for example, if a YouTuber puts out 1,000 videos in a year, then you have 1,000 points of view on that person from one perspective. So even
Exactly.
if a hit piece comes out, you may not be at all receptive to that. Even if I'm going to use this as I'm going to, I know that you're going to be familiar with this right now because you pay attention to media. Andrew Tate, whether
Yeah.
whether
Oh,
he's guilty or not, I don't know. Whether any of that actually happened or not, we don't know. But you have so much polarizing view on each side that one side is never going to hear the other side, and his fans are never going to never going to listen to, okay, maybe he is guilty. Shit, I don't know. Like, I wasn't there. But, you have those ultra fans that they're never going to concede that if the evidence comes out, he might be guilty.
and the thing is, it starts becoming if you attack, a kid and even now adults, if they don't have a lifeline to other human beings, but just to an influencer, whether that influencer is a comedian, is a singer, or even a politician, it can be in many different ways, or just a speaking personality. An attack or a criticism of that idol is an attack to them, and then they start attacking each other. We start attacking each other not because we disagree, but it's because you don't like or criticize the person I follow. the person that I support, my influencer, you don't like, so therefore you're the enemy. And you see this a lot where, to circle back, like in politics, people are who have a shared concerns are fighting because they criticize each other's political leader.
Yeah,
When if they would just sit down and talk, they'd find they actually have more in common with each other than they do their political leader.
exactly. Because
You know?
those political figureheads, they're there to get elected.
Yeah,
They're hardly there. Like they may care about one or two issues, but the rest of it is to try to get into a position of power because that's their life's goal. So they have to do certain things to get there. So, like you said, even though you may be on the left, I may be on the right in a certain circumstance.
right.
I consider myself more moderate now, but like
Yeah,
even if we are completely opposite, I guarantee you we have more in common than you would Donald Trump or you would Joe Biden or whoever the political figurehead may be because
right.
we're common folk.
And that's the other thing is that the influencers try to lay out one standard for all. They say, I'm the best in all circumstances. Well, if you just think about it, what works for me in Dallas probably isn't going to work all the time for you in Oklahoma or someone in New York or someone, you know. And so we keep trying, we're arguing over which is the best one size fits all for everyone. And there just isn't one. And that's the problem is, again, to circle back to the problem with media, people, when they choose media, they're choosing not to interact with a fellow human being. They are listening to a one size fits all message rather than hearing someone saying, well, yeah, I agree with you, except did you ever think about this? And it's like, oh, no, I never did think about that. That is different. And you learn. And if you really want to circle this back, this is why I love teaching. I would walk in with a general idea, and kids like you and all the others would say, well, I've got a different take on this. And I would go, gee, I never thought about that. And I'd go home and think about it. I'd never let y'all know that, but
And you know what's
but
scary is it's only going to get worse though with
yeah.
AI.
Oh yeah. See, because again, companies and media want to have as many consumers as possible. So they're going to say everything we do is great for everybody, even though we all know that's not right. Again, part of the travel, I'll tell you, um, I lived in Spain for a couple of years. My wife and I did. And politics in Spain is really wide open. And, you know, they had a civil war there, which was 1930s, and they didn't really get over the civil war until the 1970s when the dictator died. And what happened was, when I was there was a movement to Franco was the dictator who ruled Spain for 40 years. They wanted to move his body so it was no longer a shrine. And this was a big political issue. So I'm at a dinner party and I'm seated between two guys, and one guy says somehow that he's a member of the Communist Party of Spain. And the other guy on my right says he's a member of the new Fascist Party of Spain. Total opposites. And somebody said, well, what do you think about the idea that Franco is going to be dug up and they're going to move him and not say where he's buried or whatever? And I thought, oh, Lord, these guys are about to start throwing punches. They're the exact opposite. And I held my breath. And then one of them said, you know what I think? He said, I think they up in Madrid want us to argue about that so we don't argue about the price of bread, jobs, security, health insurance. And the other guy said, you know what? I absolutely agree with you. And they both then lifted a glass of wine to each other, toasted, and drank.
Abs- I think that's a fantastic point. I think a lot of our issues in regarding the two party system and the arguments
Yeah.
could be avoided by not answering the questions that are asked of us. So
Yep.
just like there was a topic brought up, one of them's like, you know what, I'm gonna go this way, and I think this is honestly my opinion. I'm gonna voice it and not give some combative answer, and so that I'm gonna have a give an answer that can be a cause for discourse and discussion to come to an amicable answer, or even if you disagree, an amicable disagreement. And we don't do that. We get so polarized by these questions that are asked, and we yell at each other, and then we spit on each other, and we call the cops, and we do all this crazy crap. Whenever we can just be like, you know what, this is truthfully what I think. I don't care about what being canceled. This is truthfully what I think, and if that person can lay down their sword and actually, tell us what they think, then we can have a discussion. Versus, what's your take on what Trump tweeted? You know,
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think, first of all, we got to we got to accept when you call someone, you know, and I don't know what this podcast, how much I can use profanity, but when you call somebody names or you call them and just even an
fire away.
idiot, well, yeah, you call someone an idiot or a moron. No one's ever said, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I now realize I was wrong. I agree with you." Um, and I'll tell you this: I've lately taken to, and again on all sides of this, when somebody starts just yelling at the other side and calling them names, what I tell them is, they say, "You know what you're doing? You're masturbating because all you're doing is you're just shooting out the stuff that you've got bent up. You don't care about the other person. You don't really care. This is all about you. It is all about your release. And you're really just kind of using the other person as just an object to get off on and release. And
Yeah,
frankly, if we can all and all sides agree on it, one thing, it's no one really likes public masturbation. So, I mean, can we all just agree on
that's a
that?
beautiful analogy.
And so, and I used to say, and I've said to people I agree with, people I disagree with, do me a favor and go spew in the corner or something. Just,
Go get a room.
go get a room. And,
Use
I've
the
even said,
bathroom like a normal person.
exactly. I've even said to people who disagree with me, I tell you what, take a picture of me and then go in the other room and think about my political views. There's my
Uh,
gift.
but part of it is we've come we've come so far away from physical consequences, and that's why you find martial artists are usually the most humble people, because they understand what can happen and how quickly violence can escalate. And most people don't understand what true violence is when everybody wants to escalate and throw a brick at somebody, or want to walk up and slap somebody who they has a different view. Like in those protests, the riots, people don't understand what true violence is and what it can cause. And most people have never been hit, so they don't understand that. And they've been privileged to the point to where, even though they may be a minority or they may be a majority, whatever it is, if you go up and you blatantly disrespect somebody and hit somebody nowadays, that what could come back could be 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah. And
Versus if you disrespected somebody, or just like a man to man, especially 20, 25, 30 years ago, if you just said something wrong to somebody, you could get your ass beat.
oh,
That doesn't happen now, or people that aren't aware that that could happen now
yeah,
because of this. You can
yeah.
say what you want.
No, and everyone imagines themselves the hero who's going to have the great punch counter block, and they don't realize in a real fight, um, what it's like. And everybody I know who does martial arts, and I've been asked, and I'm sure you've been asked, they always said, "Have you gotten into a real fight?" And I always say, "I walk away." Yeah, the first rule is don't be there because it's a totally different from a controlled setting. When my sons got into middle school and I think they got up to their green belts in middle school, which meant that they could now start really sparring. I really loved their sensei who said to them, sat down and said, "This is the most important thing." He said, "I'm going to tell you, do not tell people in middle school you do Taekwondo." He said, because one of two things is going to happen. They are going to challenge you. Somebody's going to challenge you to a fight. And either you're going to win and then you're going to be in trouble because you use martial arts, or they're going to kick your ass and then you're going to look like a fool, but you're not going to come out of it well. And it's not good. People don't understand.
I use a different analogy, but it's along the
Yeah,
same coin. Open carry to me is the dumbest shit in the world.
yeah,
I'm all for the Second Amendment. I'm all for having weapons. I'm all for concealed carry, but open carry, we have all these damn shootings now. If there's an active shooter like that Allen Outlet Mall, rest in peace everybody who's injured and we was
yeah.
passed. But if I have an open carry and then there's an active shooter and he sees me, who's the first person he's going to shoot?
I agree.
The guy that's being an idiot about trying to show off. I'm going to be the first one killed.
And I support the police, and the police say they don't like it because they arrive at the scene. They don't know who the bad guy is. And so they're taking those minutes there to try to figure it out. You learn, I don't know. I was never a trash talker, show off. Like if I showed up for a tournament to spar, or if I was going to fight, I didn't want to trash talk. I didn't want to say, I'm going to kick your ass or I'm going to do it. I just want to do my business. And to me, open carry is trash talking. It's inviting a problem it's creating a problem that's not there. And why do that? Same thing with trash talking or getting in somebody's face. Um, you know, it's, I think you're right that people don't realize today maybe because of phones, maybe because of the internet, we live in two worlds, the real world and a virtual world. And people are having a harder and harder time separating the two. Because in the virtual world, like gaming, by the way, I love looter shooter games.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I love is there's always another life you get. You get killed, you get shot, you can start again. You don't get that in the real world. You get knocked down. Well,
Yeah, if you get knocked down on concrete in the real world, you might bust your head open and never wake back up.
oh yeah, oh yeah. All it takes is one fight. I mean, when I've had to um, explain to kids, because a little bit of the Taekwondo, as my kids were coming up, I worked with other little kids and helped train them, and they were like, "I can't wait to get out in the street and do it." I said, we got rules in here. Do you know what the rules are in the real world if you get into a fight? And I said, there are none. And first of all, most real fights take about, what, 2 minutes?
Yeah,
And someone's on the ground?
if that, and then everybody's exhausted.
Yeah, yeah.
I had one guy who I work with. He's a salesman. He's still there, and he works out a lot. I mean, he's probably 200 or 190 pounds, about 6'2", like a decently built guy. And it looks like he should be in so much better shape than me. I had only been kickboxing like 4 months at this time, and everybody was kind of joking around. And we had this thing where he was talking smack a little bit. I was like, okay, come on, come spar. I got him to come to the gym. He came to the gym one day, and then he signed a waiver. And I didn't even go that hard because I wasn't even very good at the time. But what happened was I was used to sparring, and I was used to the rounds and the cardio. A minute into the first round, or we did 3-minute rounds. We only did one round. Yeah. A minute in, he was standing up, shelled up like this because he couldn't breathe. And I wasn't even hitting him very hard. So most people just have no concept of what the actual consequences would be if they got in a real fight.
No, they really don't. And, they want that dramatic virtual pop. Mm-hmm. And see, I used to tell the kids, I taught you in high school. One of the things I used to do with my middle schoolers is I had for training boards that they could come in and break. And they were plastic boards that you could break, and they were different strength, and they'd come in and hit and hit. And they would always ask me, tell us about your real life fights. So there was one that I always told them about. And I said, I was in 7-Eleven, and the guy was giving me change, and he gave me a dime, and the dime bounced off my hand and bounced on the ground. So I turned to pick it up, and I got down on one knee, and the guy behind me put his foot over the dime intentionally. And I looked up and I said, "Excuse me." And he looked down and said, "What are you going to do?" Now, I thought for a minute because I'm down on one knee, and this guy does not realize that by putting his foot ahead, he has opened up his entire crotch, and I'm right here, and all I've got to do is just like that. I mean, it would be one hit over because kids, if you're out there and some guy has his fist down within a foot of your crotch, don't challenge him to a fight, okay? This guy said, "What are you going to do?" And of course, all my students said, "So what'd you do? What'd you do? Did you punch him?" I said, "I got up. I said, it's not worth it." And I turned and I walked out.
Yeah.
And then the kids get all disappointed. And I said, because for a dime, I'm not going to either deck a guy and get arrested, or he's going to pull a gun and all hell's going to break loose.
And you're kind of talking about that guy talking trash, and
Yeah.
even in martial arts, we're talking about the humbleness. What a lot of people think of when they think martial arts and fighting, they think of Conor McGregor talking shit. They think of Floyd Mayweather talking shit. They think of these guys selling fights. Well, 98, 99% of the time on local amateurs, local pros, these guys, you're going to have the most peaceful, you're going to have the most amicable interactions between fighters because of the respect. Only at the top level, when their ability to sell stories, make them money, that's when you see the people going back and forth, and that's when you see people talking smack. You typically don't see it unless you have a lunatic down at the local show, and he usually gets his ass kicked anyways.
Exactly. I can't tell you how often after a sparring match, I texted with the guy afterwards. I remember one time that this guy, Big Chuck, he and I just, when you do the local circuit, you often fight the same person and you kind of go around say, "Oh, we're coming around again," especially the Taekwondo matches. So there was this guy, and he was a big guy. And, as I said, I'm not a big guy. I tend to go for speed, especially because honestly, in Taekwondo, it's not so much the power of the hit as are you just scoring. So he and I were fighting one time, and we were kind of getting into it. It was one of those where you start off friendly, but you start to kind of get a little bit irritated. And I decided that he was going to do his roundhouse kick, and I was going to swing out, jump out, and then jump in and just kind of get some quick hits. I mistimed it. I jumped in while he was still coming around with the roundhouse, and all I could do was put up my leg to try to block it. And his foot hit my shin, and we both hit in a circle and went down. you know, all I tell you is, you would think we'd be real mad at each other, but we both ended up hobbling home. And that night I texted him and I said, "Dude, I've got a golf ball size lump on my shin that fits your foot." And he said, "Dude, I broke 2 bones in my foot on your shin."
People don't know how bad that hurts to kick somebody in the knee or kick somebody in the shin or go shin to shin. It's terrible.
And then, what ended up happening was when we both could actually get up and walk, we met in middle ground for a beer. So, I mean, that's the real life of it.
I have a funny story for recently. There's another heavyweight in my gym, and he has a Taekwondo background, or sorry, he has a Kyokushin background, karate, and he does this oblique kick. The oblique kick is the side kick to the knee.
Yeah.
Well, he does it in sparring, and we've eventually kind of got tired of it. So we told him, "Hey, you're putting too much power on it. If somebody doesn't know how to check or somebody's not in a proper stance, that can really injure them because they're not expecting it." Well, we've told him multiple times not to do it, and then he just goes back to it and he'll do it, but he'll stomp down on it. I don't mind it if he's touching because I know at this point how to not be in a bad position most of the time. but it just, we told him over and over again not to do it. And then he did it and did it pretty hard one time. And luckily I checked it, but I felt the impact on my knee. So I said, okay. I started teeing off on him. And like, I could tell, like I could see it in his face, but I mean, he's my same size. So like, I don't feel bad about it. And he's got, you know, a couple years more experience than me, but I started teeing off on him. And then my coach brought it up another day that I wasn't there and talking about how he was going hard with other people in sparring. And he goes, well, shit, Austin hits me harder than I hit anyone in here. I was like, and he goes, yeah, because it's that damn oblique kick that you throw, and he got tired of it. He goes, oh, that's why? So, but to make my point, I sent him a TikTok of Anchorman where this boy, that escalated quickly. I really got out of hand, didn't it? So I sent him that as an olive branch, and then we kind of laughed about it. But that's what I wanted to bring back to is you can start out light, and then someone gets hit a little harder, and then you hit them back a little harder, and then 5 strikes later you're throwing full power. You know, so it's kind of funny that man, that escalated kind of quickly. That got out of hand.
No, it really can, and that's why you are absolutely right. When it comes to martial arts or this, you got to keep control. It's a mental thing to keep control. You know, I had one time where we have something in Taekwondo called one steps, and they're just like quick moves where someone throws a punch and you have to demonstrate how to do a 2-3 step knockdown or something. And I was working with this guy, really nice guy, and he and I were practicing. And long story short, he's tried to do a 2-punch. We had worked on this, and I told him I'm going to do a takedown, and you tell them beforehand so they don't get hurt. Right. And I said I'm going to knock you down to the mat, and then I'm going to do a heel. I'm going to finish with a heel kick to your face, but when you do this, I bring the heel to within an inch of his face so he knows I'm going to simulate it, but I'm not going to make contact because it's more demonstration. Like I would do this if it were real. Well, when we did it, his head went down, but it bounced back up the mat, and my heel hit him right in the nose. And his nose went all bloody. And the thing is, I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Oscar. I'm sorry. He's like, it's fine. His wife was there watching, and she went crazy and started jumping on me like, you did that to my husband. How could you do that to my husband? And he was trying to calm her down, saying, no, it's just one of those things. But things can get out of hand so easy.
Exactly. Like even in a controlled environment, uncontrollables happen. He fell a little harder than he expected. His head bounced off the ground, and you kicked him right in the nose.
And you just got okay.
Not meaning to.
No, I got to share one because it's one of the best that I got in trouble, and I had nothing to do with it. My 2 sons, at one point, they were asked to be on a demonstration team. They were, I guess, around 9th grade, but they were going to elementary and middle schools as a way to promote Taekwondo. And they had to do these 1 steps to show these are defensive techniques. Well, my 2 sons had worked this out and told no one. So my 2 sons, they're Ben and Journey. So in front of this whole elementary school, they announced that Ben is going to try to punch Journey, and Journey is going to do a palm strike to stop Ben. Ben steps up and starts to throw a punch. Journey blocks it and does the palm strike to Ben's chest, which is what what was supposed to happen. And then all of a sudden, they stop, and Journey gets this wild-eyed look, reaches into Ben's gi, pretends to be pulling out something, and all of a sudden rips out. Apparently, Ben had hidden in his gi in a plastic bag a chicken breast soaked in ketchup. So when Journey pulled it out, it looked like he ripped out Ben's heart. Ben starts going, ah, and falls over dead. Journey is screaming like this. The children all start screaming. Everybody is running. And the sensei of our dojo, all he does is he does a slow turn at me. Somehow he decides I'm the one who
It's your
did.
fault.
It's my fault that I put him up to it. And I have to say, we all had to apologize to the school. My sons had to apologize. I knew nothing, but I apologized. And to this day, we remember this fondly as one of the greatest bad choices my sons made.
Oh, that's hilarious. I would have been laughing my ass off if I was a parent.
Oh, I was both laughing and my wife blamed me. And I said, I didn't do it. She said, somehow you must have encouraged them.
It's your fault, even when it's not your fault.
Yeah, but it was brilliant. I'd say it was one of the most brilliant setups.
Oh,
Um,
well, I don't want to keep you on here too long. You're
Keep
welcome
talking.
anytime. I thoroughly enjoy our conversations, even though it's been 7 years. We always go back and forth.
Oh
Do you
yeah.
have anything that let me give you one last question to end off on. What do you
Okay.
think are some we've kind of talked about media. What do you think is something that people my age really need to pay attention to? We talked about picking up on signs about media and
Yeah.
the subliminal messages we're getting and the advertisements we're seeing. What is something that we can do to actively combat being sold what big media wants us to be sold?
Okay. I would say this: talk to people. Don't let media tell you what the other people think or what the other people say. Ask them themselves and then listen. I mean, if you want to bring it full circle, I mean, you can only get punching bags are great, but sooner or later you got to get in a ring with another person. And go, oh wow, this is what they really do. And just remember, in the end, we all want the same thing. We may have different roads to get there, different ideas, but just listen and talk to people. And I'll tell you one other thing. When I look back, because I don't want to give, but there's a TV show, one of my favorites, and as it's winding up, they're asking about the character keeps asking everyone, if you could go back in a time machine, what would you undo? What would you change? One of the things when I was your age, or even still yesterday, too often I wanted to be the person who knew what was going on. So when I didn't know, I faked it. Looking back, there are all those times I wish I'd asked more questions. I don't have to follow it, but I do want to hear what people think.
I'm a big proponent of that as well, to ask questions. Now, don't that doesn't mean ask a bunch of there is such thing as a stupid question.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't mean not to ask it, but a lot of people will not pay attention. It's like, let's say you're giving me a lecture and I don't pay attention to a single word or but every 10th sentence, and then I go ask a stupid question that you've covered 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Hold on. That's, I used to have what I called the sky is blue class, where I would stand in class and say, the sky is blue. Some kid would look up and say, what's the sky? The other kid would say, what's blue? And someone would say, I wasn't paying attention, go over the whole thing again. No, but I'm talking about more asking questions about, well, why do you think that? Tell me what you're thinking when you say that. I'll go out and I'll play tennis. Taekwondo hurts too much at my age now, so I love tennis now.
mhm.
But I'll play someone in tennis, and they'll say something that I completely disagree with. Afterwards we'll be having a beer, and I'll say, "Tell me why you think that." And I don't ask them so I can counter. I'll just ask them because I want to hear. Maybe they know something I don't.
Out of genuine curiosity.
Yeah, yeah. I, I don't think anyone ever got more stupid asking someone, why do you think that? I think you can only learn more. You don't have to follow it, but you learn more.
I think when you can live with that genuine curiosity and when you can actually open up to other people's ideas, you live a much more fulfilling life because you're not closed off.
No, I agree. And realizing that, and that's same thing with travel. We talked about travel, and I love to travel, but even if you can't go to another place, you can kind of travel by asking another person, tell me about your life. You're kind of piggyback traveling through them. Well, what did you see and learn? You know, I have a running joke that I've been all over the world. I've lost count of how many countries, uh, but I've never been to North Dakota, and I've never actually met someone from North Dakota. So I'm still unconvinced there is a North Dakota. And if I ever do, I'm going to say, I have a whole list of questions. Tell me what it's like.
And there's so few people in North Dakota that you're probably not going to find somebody in North Dakota.
Right, exactly. I'm going to go there and go, hello, hello, hello.
Oh
So,
my gosh. Well,
anyway,
go ahead.
no, just it's been a pleasure, Austin, and I'm real proud of you. You
Thank you.
done good.
It's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. I always tell my mom now, I'm sorry. I wish I would have had the cognitive capacity then that I do now, because as you probably know, I was like a 2.0 student in high school. And, now if I went back, I would be a 4.0 student 100% just from the dedication and the ability to think. But now I'm glad being able to do this now versus, peaking in high school. So I guess it's all kind of worked out.
It works out. I'll tell you a secret. Everyone thinks I was a little nerd in school. I was a 2.0 student. I got put on academic probation my first year of college.
I damn near
And
got kicked out of Paris 2 years in a row.
yeah, I was in the room fighting for you. So
I appreciate that. I really do. Oh my gosh.
you're a good one. And you know what? We all come around when we need to. And actually, if you think about it, when you get together with people and talk about high school, it's the ones who said, I never had a problem. Everything went great in high school. They're the ones who are just so uninteresting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The ones who sit there and romanticize high school.
Oh, yeah. And they'll say, yeah, I was the star quarterback. I had A's. I did everything. I had the sweetheart girlfriend. You're like, well, that's great on you. But
People
everybody
say,
else was a real.
people talk about it all the time, how they hate adulting and how much they would rather go back to school. I still have nightmares about having homework due.
You know what?
I did not like school, but now I like learning, but I didn't like school. So I mean, I think maybe I just wasn't receptive to the ways that are teaching, but that's why when you do have teachers who make learning fun like you did, they stand out so much. So again, I know you're not teaching anymore, but I know you're helping a lot of people learn with your books. And I will go ahead and send me some links to where they can find it. Nobody, I mean, it's crickets, it's ghost town now. Nobody's watching, but eventually they probably will. So hopefully, eventually it'll bring some traffic in.
In the big city here to the south of you.
Absolutely.
And next time you're down in Dallas, give me a call. We can now have a beer in the open.
Yes, we can. We never had one. We never had one before because I was
No,
15,
that's our
16 years
story. We're
old.
sticking to it.
I did want to bring up one more story that I can't believe I almost forgot it. You remember how the football players would come from come from workouts in the morning and then come up to your class every morning, right? We would have morning workouts, and
Yeah.
that cafeteria. I say what you want about, but that cafeteria had some of the best breakfast food that I've ever had.
Oh yeah.
And I remember how out of every teacher, were like the only one to let us bring food up to the first period class because you understood we worked out and we only had like 5-10 minutes to get to class after the gym. Well, I remember how I used to sit in the back, kick my feet up, eat my burritos, whatever I was doing. And then I remember one morning I didn't have time to actually sit down there and eat or anything. So I brought a whole bottle of Cholula up. And then I was pouring it on my burrito as you were talking. And eventually, you were actually always very nice and cordial about it. But eventually, you're like, dude, you got to take that outside and eat it because it's smelling up the entire room. It's I stunk up your entire classroom with Cholula hot sauce.
So
I can't. You cut out. What'd you say?
I probably made you do that because I was hungry. I love that stuff. So I'm sitting there doing it. Now, you know what? That's the thing of it is we all got to cut each other slack, and that, and one of my sons ran cross country at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning. So I was like, what would I want for my sons? And that's let them eat,
Yeah.
you know?
As long as it's not a distraction or
Yeah,
stinky,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, there you go. And he shared some with me.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Wasserman. I'm definitely going to invite you back on sometime, and I hope you enjoyed the time speaking together. And
Oh,
next time I'm down, we will have to go grab a beer or something.
sounds good. All right. Thanks, Austin.
You have a good
Take
night.
care.
Get up, get out of bed, and get going.
Living for weekends, wishing I could take a break from this world.